I speak to ICI. I was. She was in the base up there.
Yeah. So you moved out of town?
Yeah.
Whose wife and whose wife? Oh, I see. So then down, basically.
No, it was just don't you? Wife lives. Seriously, no.
I know.
So, yeah, it was. You go with it.
Yeah, no fun.
Basically, you decide what you want.
Yeah, yeah.
10% on the bill you receive.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of tough with kids.
Yeah.
You do that independently, you
No,
federation.
no, I'm on it.
Hey there, George. I haven't seen you.
No, seriously.
Archie.
Look at my case.
The amount of the Temple Beth Tzedek.
I'm telling you.
Hello there. What you did? I don't think I said, how are you feeling? You brought it. Sure, you feel nice. It is what it is.
Is it what?
No, we're just, we like making noise.
I just fetch when I get up, when I sit down, when I lay down, when I get up. You're looking good, my friend. You look good. Well, I'm just giving you my own personal assessment. You're here.
He's here, he's supposed to be there. Oh, there could be. Could be in Florida.
I was speaking to your brother.
I know this guy.
Remember? I never spoke.
No. I don't joke. I don't joke.
It's good to see you. It's been about a year or two. It's nice to see you.
Hey, good looking for you.
Well, I parked right next to
Same
you.
old circle.
Oh, did you?
Right next to you. There were two white cars.
This white-haired lady. It's been so long. I haven't seen you in 4 years.
Yeah.
No, not that long.
Is it that long? I said, really?
Should know.
Yeah. Still
Hi,
go,
Sam.
did you go back?
Sam, should,
Sylvia. Yes.
Sam,
Did you go back to the center?
yeah. A couple people have asked about it. I don't think we do it, but they from the class
Yeah.
that are in my silver switches class. And then she said, oh, you're not good.
Back snowbirds. Hi. Shabbat shalom.
Until Sunday night.
About time, right? Yeah, I think so, right? Yeah.
Soraim Tovim, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Temple Beth Tzedek. We are glad to have a nice group here in anticipation for our Friday night services and for the beginning of our Klein Scholar Weekend. We are not quite at Shabbat yet, and we're not quite ready to do that, so we are going to begin with the weekday afternoon service, Mincha. If you have your Shabbat Siddur with you, we will start right at the beginning on page 1.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יגלוך סלון. גדול מאוד, דולוסך, כדאי שחוצה. ואין לפלוסך, זכר דברי אני צצמי. תורן לכל, וכל מסלו. ברוך שמי, ברוך ידבי. עוד דור, ברוך. צדיק אתה מחוץ. תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך כבודו שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה. יקרא ויקדש שמי רבו, וילמד דברו חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכנו ויומכנו וחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה וזמן הקריב ויאמרו, ישמר הבום מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשו, לעילה מנקה בחטא ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו.
Please rise if you're able. Cantor will recite out loud the beginning of the Amidah, pages 3a and 4. The rest of the Amidah is said individually through page 9.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanara El Elyon, Gomel Chasodim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'Nehem L'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshe U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, atah Gibor Li'olam Adonai, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר. קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו, ליומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושותך נקדיש, שבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Feel free to continue if you're still reciting the Amidah. Kaddish Shalem is on page 10, followed by Aleinu on page 11.
יקרא ויקרא שמי רבו, בעולמו דברו חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחיי חונו ויומי חונו, וחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלו בזמן קריב יאמרו, יהי שמי רבו, מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ואמרו, תתקבל צלותנו ואותן דכל ישראל, קדם אבוהן דבשמיא ואמרו, יהי שלום רבו מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו, עושה שלום במרומו והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו, עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
For those of mourning and those observing Yahrzeit Mourners Kaddish, page 12. Yigadal v'yitkadosh shameh rabam v'yalma divra kiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael ba'galau v'zman kariv v'imru amen yehi shmeh rabam mevorach le'olam olamei almaya Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiran v'yalma v'imru amen Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'mermav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Please be seated. We are now able to begin our Shabbat worship. We'll start in our Sidurim on page 14 with the singing of Yedid Nefesh.
ידיד נפש אב הרחמן משוך עבדך אל רצונך ירוץ עבדך כמו אייל ישתחווה אל מול הדרך ירב לו ידידותך מנופת צוף וכל הטעם הדור נאה זיו העולם נפשי חולת אהבתך אנא אלנה רפנה לה בהראות לה נועם זיווך אז תתחזק ותתרפא והייתה לך שפחת עולם ותקיימו רחמך בחוסנה על בין אוהבך כי זה כמה נחשף לראות בתפארת עוזך, אנא אלי מחמד ליבי חושנה ואל תתעלם, יגלנה ופרויס חביב עלי את סוכת שלומך, תאיר ארץ מכבודך, נגילה ונשמחה בך, מהר אהוב כי במועד, וחנני כי מעולם. יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי לי לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
Pages 15 and 16.
לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני, נריע נריע לצור ישנו, נקדמה פניו בתודה, נריע נריע לצור ישנו, בזמירות נריע לו, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה Ranena la Adonai, lechune ranena, lechune ranena, lechune ranena la Adonai. Arba'im shana kud bedor v'amaram to'el levavhem v'hem lo yadu derachai asher nishbati v'api im yavol el menuchati shiru l'Adonai shir chadash shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz shiru l'Adonai baruch shemo basru miyom leyom yeshuato sapru Vagoyim kevodo bechal hamim nifleotav ki gadol Adonai umhulol meod norahu al kol Elohim lai 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 ki kol Elohei hoamim elilim v'Adonai shamayim oso hod vehodor lefon of Ozve Tiferet B'Mikdosho Havul Adonai Mishpechot Amim Havul Adonai Kavod Va'oz Havul Adonai Kevod Shemo Se'o Mincha Uvo Lechatrotav Lai 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 Hishtachavul Adonai Behadrat Kodesh Chilu Mipon Novekol haaretz imru vagoyim Adonai Moloch afti kontev el balatimot yodin amim b'meisharim yismechu hashamayim v'togel. Yeah, Yiram Hayam Omelo Yalo Sodai V'chol Asher Bo Ay Yos Yeranenu Kolat Seyoar Lifnei Adonai Kiva Lishpot Haaretz Yishpot Tevel Betzedek Ve'amim Be'emunato Lai 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 lai.
Continue with the Psalms between pages 17 and 19.
Or zaru ala tzadik ulishvelev simcha simchu tzadikim badonai v'hodu lezecher kodesho. Mizmor shirul Adonai shir chadash ki niflaot asa Hoshia lo yemino uzro akadsho hodiya Adonai Yeshuato le'enei hagoyim gilot tzidkoto zochar chasto ve'emunato levei Yisrael ra'u Kol Seoret et Yeshuat Eloheinu Hariyol Adonai Kol Haaretz Pitzchu Veranenu Vezamero Zamru Adonai Bechinor Vekol Zimra Bachatzot Tzrot Vekol Shofar Hariyol Ifnei HaMelech Adonai Yiram Hayam Umelo Tevel Veyosh Veva Neharo Yimcha'u Yachar Harim Yeranenu Lifnei Adonai Kiva Lishpot Haaretz Yishpot Tevel B'Tzedek Ve'amim B'Meisharim Lai 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 Ramamu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kodesho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
Page 20, please rise.
Mizmor leDavid havul Adonai b'nei elim havul Adonai kavod vos lai 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 havul Adonai kevod shemo shtachavul Adonai b'hadrat kodesh kol Adonai al hamoim el kavod hirim Adonai Alemayim Rabim Kol Adonai Bakoach Lai 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 Kol Adonai Behadar Kol Adonai Shover Arazim Aishaber Adonai Et Arzei Halvanon Bayar Kidem Kemo Egel Levanon Vesirion Kemo Kevon Veneremim Lai 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 Kol Adonai Chotzev Lahavot Esh Kol Adonai Yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kodesh, Kol Adonai yechol el ayalot, Vayechesoth Ye'arot, Uvehechalo, Kulo omer kavod, ay, Adonai, Lama bul yoshav yeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, lai,
Please be seated. We'll continue momentarily with Lecha Dodi, noting that at the final verse we will rise and stand at the entrance of whatever room you're in, whether you're here in the sanctuary or whether you're watching online and in your homes. We do so to welcome Shabbat into our hearts on this Friday night. We'll start on page 21.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabla. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, ishmi'anu el hamiyuchad Adonai echad, oshmo echad l'shem u'tiferet. Velitila lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha merosh mikedem, nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshavot techila, lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat nekabela, mikdash melech ir melucha, kum mitzei mitocha hafecha rav eloch shevet, beyemek habocha v'hu yachamol ala yichemela, lecha dodi likrat pene Shabbat nekabela, hitna arim e'afar kumi, livshi bigdei tifaratecha mi aliyad ben Yishai, beit halach mi karva el, nafshi ge'ala lecha dodi likrat kala, pene Shabbat Hit orari, kiva orech kumi ori, shir daberi kavod Adonai, alaych nigla, lecha dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat Lo tevo shir lo tikol mi matish tochachi umatemi boch yechesu aniyami venivneta ir altila lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela v'hayu l'mishisa shoy soyich v'rocha kukol Mevalayich Yosis alayich Elohayich Kim sos chatan alakala lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela yaminu smol tifrotzi v'et Adonai taritzi al yad ish Ben parzi ben nismecha ben nagila lecha dodi likrat kala pene Shabbat nekabela בואי ושלום התרס בלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קבלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
May be seated. The psalm for Shabbat on 23, followed by the top of 24.
צדיק תמר יפרח, כארז בלבנון יזכה, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד ינובון בסבע, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיר כי ישר אדוני צורי, ולא עוולתו בו. עדותיך נבנו מאוד לביתך נא וקודש, אדוני לאורך ימים.
For those in mourning, those observing yard site, mourners Kaddish, middle of page 24. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemeh rabam, v'yalma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'imru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim alinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imrumav, huya aseh shalom, alinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Please be seated. A number of you in this room had the privilege to have known Rabbi Isaac Klein personally. You were able to understand and see him as a gentleman, a scholar, a teacher, a friend, someone who served the community, someone who served his country. Rabbi Klein was introduced to me actually more than 20 years ago, frankly, as a book that plenty of you know about, A Guide to Jewish Religious Practice. I think of Rabbi Klein's book when I think of the time when I started rabbinical school. Rabbi Friedman, our Klein scholar, this weekend, she and I were classmates in rabbinical school, and we're 2 weeks away from our 18-year rabbi-versary. Okay, don't say that. Okay.
No, that's really
18. Yeah. If it hadn't been me, Alana Garber would have said so. Exactly. And so if you believe it, Rabbi Friedman and I have known each other almost a decade longer than that. And it is one of the privileges of being a pulpit rabbi is being able to call your friends, your colleagues, and say, hey, why don't you come and teach us? But Rabbi Friedman isn't just any friend. She is also a scholar, a gentlewoman, a tremendous, tremendous rabbi, a very dear friend. I don't want to do too much introducing because I don't want to take away from the Klein Weekend Committee. So I'll turn it over now to Fern Bernstein, who will be introducing formally Rabbi Friedman. I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're lucky to have you, and you're in for a treat.
Well, I don't know what else to say. Lehitraot. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to our first traditional post-pandemic reinstatement of our beloved Rabbi Isaac Klein Scholar in Residence Weekend. Yo. Complete with, of course, our guest rabbi, Jenny Friedman, but also something all of us Jews value deeply, good food. Before I introduce you to Rabbi Friedman, who's already been pre-introduced, who among her many other credentials is also a very dear friend and colleague of Rabbi Rosenbaum, as he just said, I would like to thank so many in our congregation who've helped to make this weekend possible. First, my co-chair, Judy Brownstein, who really stepped up this past week while Steve and I dealt with another recent health scare for him. But thank God that's passed. Also, Rabbi Rosenbaum, who attended every single one of our Zoom meetings to plan this weekend, made many valued suggestions, including the theme of our menu for tonight's Shabbat dinner, Cinco de Mayo, or in Hebrew, Chamesh B'mei. Let me say personally, we have valued your suggestions, Rabbi, your contributions the past 3 years while we battled through trying to do this remotely. Then last year with your stepdad, Rabbi Greenspan, and now live and in person with Rabbi Friedman. While you've been with us at TBT, and we wish you, Steve and I, our family, and I think everybody in this room, wish you nothing but good health and happiness as you move forward. And we're going to miss you. Thank you to everybody in our Adult Education Committee. Ina Shear, Eleanor Weiss, Myra Werbo, Mona Lewis, Eileen Markson. Due to their efforts, and of also Beth Kassir, Linda Boxer, and Marcia Goldstein, the tables got set yesterday. Table placards were made and put on the tables. And Nasharai was purchased to give Rabbis Friedman and Rosenbaum the keches to get through the weekend. Our deep appreciation also goes to Kim Jones, Michelle, Terry, and Pat, who tirelessly work for us all in the congregation to enjoy all the events in our beloved shul. Also, thank you to my dear cousin, Elaine Brothman, for making the housing arrangements for Rabbi Friedman at Asbury Heights, which we saw today are par excellence. To Andy Gowers, Larry Boxer, Mona, and Fred Lewis for making sure Rabbi Friedman is able to arrive here safely to join us for each of our events. If it were not for our funds and their donors, we would not be able to enjoy this always meaningful event. And to all of our patrons, we say Toda Rabbah. Because, as I said before, this is our first post-pandemic traditional Klein weekend, and for me personally, I am able to be here tonight with Steve. I thought it would be appropriate for us all to say the Shehechianu. So please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Amen. All right, back to our star. Rabbi Friedman comes to us this weekend from NYC, where she lives with her husband and 2 children, currently the CEO of the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture, and also directs the International Nahum Goldman Fellowship that supports and provides programs for emerging young Jewish leaders around the world. Rabbi Friedman, coincidentally, is from Canada, as is somebody else to my left. It's kind of like with Bashert, huh? She was ordained by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America and has her master's degree in Midrash. She earned her PhD in education and Jewish studies from NYU. She is a Wexler graduate, fellow, Davidson scholar, and has done extensive research on the development of clergy education and how we develop the formation of Jewish identity. Rabbi Friedman has also served as a pulpit rabbi for 5 years and as a Jewish education consultant. She became the associate director of the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture in 2015, and now, as I said previously, is the CEO. She moved way up the ladder. Go women power. Tonight and this weekend, Rabbi Friedman will speak to us about global Jewish peoplehood. If you're like me, that term peoplehood didn't have much meaning. I've kind of learned about it more through having lunch and spending part of the afternoon with Rabbi. I thought it meant that it's that customary bond we all feel when we meet someone new who's Jewish. And all of a sudden there's like this connection, and we go on to play Jewish geography, and we instantly feel that bond with somebody, whether we win the game or not. Let's see if I'm right. So it's my deep honor and pleasure to introduce you to Rabbi Jenny Friedman. No, for sure, sorry. All right.
I think so. Shabbat Shalom. It is equally cool, I will say, to be able to go visit your friends and see them rabbiing in action, because we never get to do that. You're always in your home pulpit, and so you never take a weekend of your vacation to go see your friend do their job. So one of the pleasures of not being in the pulpit is to go and see amazing, wonderful friends, colleagues. You have the menschiest, most wonderful rabbi in Rabbi Rosenbaum and Adam. And it's so interesting because I was invited to actually do your installation. During COVID, things were canceled, postponed again. So I want to say the following. You are officially installed. Welcome to the congregation. We really look forward to your service. I'm sure you'll guide them with integrity and dutiful leadership over everything that could possibly come your way in the next number of years. And may your path forward be blessed. So in a couple of months, you can uninstall him. But for now, he's officially installed. So I am really delighted to be with you all this weekend. And I want to begin by thanking Rabbi Rosenbaum for making the shidduch, and Fern Bernstein and Judy Brownstein, and the entire Adult Education Committee for inviting me and creating what I hope will be a wonderful weekend for us to learn all together. I also want to thank Linda Boxer for the incredible tour of this fabulous building. I have been in a lot of sanctuaries, in a lot of Jewish communities all around the world, and I have never been in a room as beautiful as this. You have something absolutely special here. It incorporates history, it is welcoming, it is stunning. So please, it's just absolutely beautiful. I'm really enjoying being here. I really hope you love it, because it's a wonderful room to walk into. So tonight, what I would like to do first is give you a bit of an introduction to the organization that I lead, which is called the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture, and our founder, Nachum Goldman, and the work that we do. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this word, Jewish peoplehood, and what it means to us here in Buffalo and in Jewish communities around the world. So does that sound good? We're good with that plan? Okay. Do you know that joke about what does it mean when an academic takes off their watch? Have you ever heard that joke? It means absolutely nothing. That's what it means. I want to invite you to step back in time with me to 1951. So World War II had been over for 6 years. Israel had been a state for 3, and Dr. Nahum Goldman, one of the creators of the Encyclopedia Judaica, one of the founders of the World Jewish Congress, began to envision a future for Jewish communal life in the post-war era. Dr. Goldman is often referred to as the statesman without a state. He was one of the last of a generation of Jews whose life combined many features of European culture, East and West, Jewish and non-Jewish. He was born in a shtetl in what is now Lithuania and raised from the age of 6 in Frankfurt, Germany. He was quite short, but very handsome, always impeccably dressed with blue eyes, a head of silver hair, a dazzling smile, and a razor-sharp wit. Dr. Goldman dedicated his entire career to Jewish public service, both within the Zionist movement and in the larger effort to establish and secure Jewish rights throughout the world. The issues he wrote and spoke about have lost none of their relevance with the passage of time. He wondered about the uniqueness of Jewish fate, the preservation of Jewish identity, and the relationship between the Jews of Israel and those of the diaspora. Sounds pretty familiar. Dr. Goldman had escaped capture by the Nazis by fleeing Germany to visit his sick father in Tel Aviv in March of 1933. Although Goldman's friends Chaim Weizmann and American rabbi Stephen Wise had urged him to leave Berlin earlier, he was reluctant to leave his home in Germany. And Eshkol, the press which he founded with Jewish writer and philosopher Jacob Klatskin. But his father's imminent death compelled Goldman to leave Germany with his fiancée Alice. He would not return to the country of his youth until after the collapse of the Nazi regime. By 1935, his citizenship had been revoked for subversive activity, and his possessions were removed from his apartment and sold at auction. He and Alice married in Tel Aviv, and Goldman, with the help of the French foreign minister, was able to acquire an unlikely new nationality as a citizen of Honduras. He served as Honduran consul in Geneva for 10 years, until becoming a US citizen in 1945. In his memoirs, Goldman writes that he ultimately held many citizenships in his life: Spanish, Polish, Russian, Lithuanian, German, American, and Israeli. His lifelong friend and colleague, David Ben-Gurion, once criticized Goldman for being a wandering Jew. Goldman replied that some people have their roots in themselves, and they have no need to put them down in any particular soil. He, in turn, criticized Ben-Gurion, that you, Ben-Gurion, consider your problems, and any problems, from the viewpoint of your porch in Sde Boker, the kibbutz where Ben-Gurion made his home, whereas Goldman saw the problems of the world from a plane, flying 12,000 meters high. It was a different approach and perspective. But with the war over, Goldman wrote, the more obvious it became that the bulk of European Jewry was irretrievably lost, the more necessary to draw conclusions from this tragedy and create a basis for the continued existence of the Jewish people. This work had 2 goals. One was to rehabilitate the European survivors and obtain restitution from Germany. The other, to seek a definitive solution to what was then called the problem of Palestine. For the first goal, Goldman and the World Jewish Congress worked to prosecute and sentence political and military leaders for crimes against humanity, laying the intellectual and moral groundwork for the Nuremberg trials, and ultimately the contemporary international system of justice. But no less important than the principle of punishment was the swift proclamation and establishment of restitution, material compensation, both to individuals who had been robbed of their families and their property, as well as to the larger Jewish community. This legal move was unprecedented in world history. In October 1951 in New York, with participants representing 22 Jewish organizations from the United States, England, Canada, Australia, South Africa, France, and Argentina, the Conference on Material Claims Against Germany, which you may also know as the Claims Conference, was established with Nachum Goldman as its first chairman. Goldman's first meeting with German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer was held in secret because of death threats to Goldman's life from Jews in Israel and around the world, who felt that neither individuals nor Israel as a nation should accept any money from Germany. Fierce debate raged over how to pay wartime debts, from the halls of power in Bonn, West Germany, to the streets of Jerusalem, where horror about any talks with Germany led to violent protests and a mob storming into the Knesset. Nevertheless, authorized by Ben-Gurion, surrounded by bodyguards, Goldman and Adenauer first met secretly for an hour in a hotel in London in December of 1951. Of this meeting, Goldman wrote that he and Adenauer felt the wings of world history beating in the room. The fraught negotiations did not end there, but ultimately concluded with the signing of an agreement that for the first time in human history, individual victims of persecution received material compensation from their perpetrators. The work of those negotiators continues today, with the Claims Conference continuing to provide material support for survivors of the Shoah wherever they live all over the world. But Goldman wasn't done. In 1965, he created a parallel organization, the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture, to help establish a new generation of writers, artists, scholars, and to support Jewish communal professionals and lay leaders to forge new directions in Jewish cultural life. Nachum Goldman died in West Germany in August in 1982 at the age of 87. He was buried along the leaders of the State of Israel on Har Herzl in Yerushalayim. Dr. Goldman was a complicated leader in a complicated time. He advocated for ideas that were not always so popular. His idea had people rioting in the streets and storming the Knesset. He was an ardent Zionist from an early age, but when invited by Ben-Gurion to live in Israel and serve in the first Israeli government, he turned him down. Over the course of his life, despite his deep and enduring friendships with them, he frequently criticized Israel's leadership for what he called inflexible and unrealistic policies. Goldman saw as the central problem facing world Jewry the preservation of Jewish uniqueness in an increasingly homogenized world. He believed in the necessity of a creative, passionate, purposeful life for Jews in the diaspora. To that end, since our inception, the MFJC has given over 16,000 individual grants and scholarships for individuals pursuing research in all areas of Jewish cultural life all around the world. And in 1987, the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture and my predecessor, Dr. Jerry Hochbaum, created a global leadership development program, the Nachum Goldman Fellowship, which is designed for young Jews ages 25 to 40 from all around the world, working as Jewish professionals and lay leaders, and representing the broadest possible spectrum of political and religious ideologies to come together, to learn from an outstanding faculty, and to learn from each other about Jewish life, Jewish identity, and this very confusing term, Jewish peoplehood. Since 1987, the MFJC has organized 32 international Nachum Goldman Fellowships on 6 continents and 12 regional Nachum Goldman Fellowships in communities around the world. Our last in-person regional conference was a 3-day program in Belarus, in Minsk, and I flew back in February of 2020 on an empty plane with somebody sitting far away from me wearing a mask. And I landed at JFK and I thought, wow, something in the world has shifted. During 2021, as we too pivoted and pivoted and pivoted again during COVID, we held our first international online NGF with 15 participants from 8 different communities. Last year, we were able to return to meeting in person, and we held our week-long conference in France. And please God, next month, we will be gathering again in Israel, as we do every other year, with 35 young representatives from 18 Jewish communities around the world. From Australia to Argentina, we have Russian and Ukrainian participants, Canada, the United States, Mexico, Israel, everywhere. So I hope with this limited background, you can see that I have spent the last decade thinking about Jewish culture, Jewish leadership, innovation, and creativity, and particularly the ways Jewish people from across the world who come from different places beyond Jewish geography can connect. The groups we bring together come from religious denominations, from Haredi to secular. They come from differently sized Jewish communities, like the one in Mallorca, Spain, where there are about 200 Jews, to Jewish communities of around, the internet says there are about 13,000 Jews in Buffalo. Does anybody think that's true? Too high? Too high. There's a Jewish communal professional back there, right? All right. 50,000, which is an overestimation of those in South Africa, to larger Jewish communities, around 300,000 in Canada, to the largest Jewish communities, millions and millions of Jews in the United States and Israel. Our participants identify on the political right and left, and significantly, we bring together young people who call themselves Zionist, non-Zionist, and anti-Zionist. The majority of my work is to create spaces where we take winning off the table and create a shared context, to talk about Jewish texts and values, to see where we can bring the next generation of Jews together respectfully across very deep divides. Each year, the Nachum Goldman Fellowship is built on a theme, and often that theme includes a deep dive into the value of peoplehood. So just for a few minutes, I'd like us to engage in an exercise that we do with the fellows, which is to invite you to think about your personal peoplehood stories. You all think, now she's lost the plot. But I promise you, peoplehood is one of those very big words that we just keep going. We think we understand what we mean when we each use the word peoplehood. But if we dig a little deeper into our individual understandings and experiences, we see that this big word, which we think is quite nice, yay, peoplehood. Let's go to a peoplehood rally to support Jews. It's actually a very thin idea, and it deserves taking some time to thicken our understanding of what we mean when we think peoplehood. So we can recognize that usually we're not starting from a place of shared definitions. Moreover, by taking the time to delve beneath our surface definitions of values like peoplehood, not only are we better able to see where we disagree with one another, but we're also better to understand our own inner conflicts around the value. If peoplehood is so easy to embody, we would embrace it all of the time. But truthfully, it's not easy. Within peoplehood, there are tensions between being an individual and belonging to a collective, and between dependence and independence. So we're going to take a couple of minutes to begin thinking about your own peoplehood stories. Just take a minute to think of a story, an event, a moment from your own life that you would identify, that you think to yourself, that's my Jewish peoplehood story, or a Jewish peoplehood story. My husband is so sick of my Jewish peoplehood stories. He's like, really? You came home with another peoplehood story? But I have a lot of them, so if you need one, I can make some suggestions. But I also want to say something, and I hope you don't think it's too controversial. It doesn't have to be a positive peoplehood story. Some of our most powerful and significant moments in the Jewish world come from the times that we felt disconnected rather than connected to the entity of the Jewish people. I have those stories too. So think for 1 second, and when you have a peoplehood story, just give me a little nod. If you need an example, I'll give you an example. You're not going to tell me just yet. 1 second. Does anybody need an example, or you're okay? You want an example? Here's an example. I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. It's really cold in Edmonton, Alberta. Tu B'Shvat in Edmonton, Alberta is celebrated in February. I understand the people in this room know something about cold and February. I get it. Nevertheless, every year at the Edmonton Talmud Torah, the JNF would come when I was growing up, and they would hand out bags of what? Dried fruits, nuts. What is that? I don't know what that is. It's carob. Oh, it's terrible. You think it's chocolate, and then you're all faked out. That is a real peoplehood story that I have, that carob is not chocolate. We could spend a whole Shabbat talking about faking out children who think, oh, chocolate, what is that? Yes, absolutely. So somehow, in my Jewish peoplehood stories, as a child, growing up in, central Alberta in February, somebody's priority, educational priority, to connect me to the larger Jewish world and to Israel was to lovingly make these, I tease about it, but I know the people who work for JNF in Edmonton, right? So was to make these kits and hand them out to all of the children in the Edmonton Talmud Torah. So that's an example, right? A place, a location, maybe when you travel, you visit a Jewish community somewhere, and you go to their synagogue. Or maybe you had a twin for a celebration somewhere along the way. Or maybe you attended a rally for opposing anti-Semitism. Or maybe you connect to a Zoom online community in Cape Town, South Africa, because you think it's cool to go to shul in Cape Town, South Africa. I do. It's really cool. Okay, so if you have an example of a peoplehood story, I want you to turn to the person sitting next to you and tell them the peoplehood story and share. 1 minute, only 1 minute. Come on, you talk about other things. You don't talk about peoplehood. Did you find one? You found a story? Okay, 1 second. right. Okay. They warned us in rabbinical school. Also, do you remember in rabbinical school that book, we just called Rabbi Klein's book, we didn't call the book by its title, we called it Klein. And yeah, go look in Klein. If you didn't know, you didn't know, but that was the answer. Anytime anybody had a question, go check Klein. So it's very exciting to be standing in this place and thinking about Rabbi Klein. All right, who heard a good peoplehood story, or who has a peoplehood story? You put your finger up first. So tell me your name.
Lynn.
Lynn, hi Lynn. Tell us your peoplehood story.
I want to start with bad peoplehood.
It's okay. I could share a bad peoplehood story first, but.
Years ago, I was teaching in a school in East Aurora, which is a rather upscale little suburb. And it was just prior to, I guess we would call then the Christmas vacation. And I was invited to an all-women's teachers cocktail party dinner at somebody's East Aurora home. And we were all on the floor in front of a roaring fireplace, and it was quite beautiful. And then they started asking me, well, first they started telling me how beautiful I was. They loved my dark skin. They found me very exotic.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you from? Where are you from? All of a sudden I realized what they were asking. And I said, are you asking if I'm Jewish? And they said, well, we didn't want to ask that, but you are the only one that doesn't have Christmas decorations. And it was I always knew that I was Jewish. I've been surrounded by Jewish culture, Jewish family, Jewish life forever. But it was the first time I realized other people who weren't Jewish thought of me as Jewish. Before they thought of me as that lousy teacher, that great teacher, that tall person, that short person. I was the rather dark, exotic person from the Bronx. That's my people.
Lynn, thank you. That was terrific. Thank you. Is there another one? There was a story here. No? Please, what's your name? Marge. Hi.
When I was young, right before I got married and after I got married, I worked in the office of New York Central Railroad.
Okay.
And all the people that were employed there mostly were from the surrounding area, which is a very heavily Polish-dominated area.
Mm-hmm.
My last name was, well, when I was single, it was left, so it was like anything.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like 50, 60 women all working in the same room. And we became very friendly, we had lunch together, and so forth. And I never discussed my religion. And it came time, one of the girls was getting married, and they invited me to a shower. It happened to be on Yom Kippur. And I said to them, I'm terribly sorry, but it's my holiday. And they said, what holiday? So I told them, I explained what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so therefore I can't come. And they said, well, your holidays are not important. I mean, and from that day on, there were several people that never spoke to me again because they found out I was Jewish.
It's very painful. Thank you. Thank you. In the back row, someone from the back row has a peoplehood story. Please, who are you?
I'm Rob. I'm privileged of staffing over a dozen birthday trips. And it's a very interesting experience because oftentimes the students who are on the trips, the college students in this case, come from interfaith homes, maybe they didn't have a bar mitzvah, their connection to Judaism is very thin, very tangential. But towards the end of the trip, what happens is almost miraculous each time, is that they feel a connection to Jewish people, and that's how they articulate it. Because they never felt that before. They didn't feel it in synagogue.
Right.
They didn't feel it by what they ate or the community in which they lived. But on that trip with their peers, they felt a connection to each other, and they could articulate this, feeling connected to community.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, peer connections are one of the most important things that we can offer educationally to create peoplehood. They teach you in rabbinical school not to be the person who's in the way of people and their delicious food. So I want to encourage you, right? They say, don't get in the way of the festive collation. That's why they make the president make the announcements. Yes, I know. We're very sneaky. So I want to encourage you to, for those of you who didn't share, when we move to our delicious dinner, Chamesh B'mai, please continue to talk about your peoplehood stories, your good peoplehood stories, your positive connections, your visits to Jewish communities in various places, and your painful peoplehood stories. Absolutely. Those are very real, and they make you understand the ways that Judaism is seen from the outside. So I want to close with two questions. Yes, two questions about peoplehood, which hopefully will not be too surprising, but will also reveal themselves as very Jewish. Is peoplehood an ancient or a modern concept? Who says ancient? Who says modern? The answer is yes. Scholars of Jewish peoplehood disagree on when Jewish peoplehood as an idea begins. Some argue that it begins with God's command to Avraham to leave his father's home in the book of Genesis, in Parshat Lech Lecha, and head to a land that God shows him. A land which he does, as we know, get to, but, spoiler alert, he promptly has to leave because of a famine. But nevertheless, the establishment of that family, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, and all of their descendants, can be seen as the beginning of the story of Jewish peoplehood. And other scholars of peoplehood contend that actually the emergence of Jewish peoplehood as an idea can be traced to the United States in the 1930s. Its pioneers were American Jewish leaders, most importantly Rabbi Stephen Wise and Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, who had close ties to the Zionist movement. Peoplehood in the United States at that time illuminates the intimate relationship between Jewish peoplehood and nationalist paradigms of group identity that shaped European Jewish political thought and other early expressions of Zionism. Which takes me to my next question about peoplehood for you to think about. Is peoplehood something internally driven or externally imposed? Yes, you're on to me. I can go home now. All right. The first identification of the Jewish people as an am, a nation, which is where we derive the Hebrew word for peoplehood, amiyut, is uttered by Paro at the beginning of the book of Exodus, when he says to his people, Vayomer el amo, hine am, b'nei Yisrael, rav ve'atzum mimenu. He says to his people, look, the Israelite people are too numerous for us. Let's deal with them and make their lives difficult, or they'll take up arms and displace our nation, the nation of Egypt. So peoplehood can feel imposed from the outside when people look at you as part of the Jewish people. Conversely, because Shavuot is almost upon us, we also have to take into consideration the utterance of Ruth, which is classically understood not only as her religious conversion to Judaism, but as her voluntary tying of her fate to that of the Jewish people. When her mother-in-law urges her to leave, Ruth says to her, Ki el asher telchi elech, uva asher talini alin, amech ami, ve'elohaich Elohai. And Ruth replied, do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you, for wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. So the Jewish people are globally connected, but it is complicated. The ways we enter into peoplehood and our feelings of being connected and continuing to, wanting to remain connected are very personal and very individual. In my experience, we have more that unites us as Jews than divides us. And as long as we keep entering into these spaces and into these conversations, I think we can and should remain hopeful about the Jewish communal future. Shabbat Shalom.
I think we all agree that this certainly whetted our appetites for more presentation, for more thoughts, and even more learning to go. But what a way to begin and to acknowledge the bonds that are between all of us, not only in this room but across the world of Jewish peoplehood. So thank you, Rabbi Friedman. We look forward to much more throughout the weekend. As we have learned words of Torah through Rabbi Friedman, I'd like to ask everyone, if you're able, to kindly rise at your rise, and we turn back to page 24 in the middle and say Kaddish for those who have no one to say it for them, as we keep in mind those who perished in the Shoah, defending the state of Israel, those who've died of COVID-19, those in the line of fire in Ukraine, United States, and elsewhere. We, of course, keep in mind the victims of the shooting in Atlanta earlier this week. Mourner's Kaddish, middle of page 24. Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei rabam b'yaoma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agalau v'izman kariv v'imru amen yehi shmei rabam v'varach le'alam u'lamei almaya yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Remain standing if you would for page 28 as we move into the Mariv service with the call to worship, the Baruch
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated.
Umavi yamu mevi loila, umavdil ben yamu vein loila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tomid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hamari v'aravim. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, amchavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shachbeinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu ve'yorech yamenu uvahem negeh yomam v'layla ve'ahavotecha al tosim imenu le'olamim baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha U'b'chol nafshecha U'b'chol ma'odecha Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele Asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom alevavecha V'shinantam levonecha V'dibarta bam V'shivtecha B'veitecha U'v'lechtecha V'derech U'v'shachbecha U'v'kumecha U'kshartam le'ot al yodecha V'hayu letotafot b'neinecha U'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha U'v'ishorecha. Adonai Elohechem emet.
Page 32.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם, משה ובני ישראל הכנו שירה, בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באוהלים ארוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה, זה אלינו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גואל ישראל. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Please rise, page 34.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבו, וילמד יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגולה ובזמן הקריב יאמרו. יהי שמי רבו מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו.
We recite the Amidah individually, pages 35 through 38. When you've concluded your recitation, kindly remain standing. You're still reciting the Amidah. Feel free to continue at your own pace. The cantor will continue on page 47.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל הצבאם ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות.
Seated.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Konei Shamayim v'Aretz Magen Avot b'Devaro Mechaye Meitim b'Mamaro Ha'el HaKadosh She'en Kamohu Hameniach לעמו ביום שבת קודשו כי בם רצה להניח להם כי בם רצה להניח להם לפניו נעבור ביראה ופחד ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד מן הברכות אל ההודעות אדון השלום מקדש השבת ומברך שביעי ומניח בקדושו לימדו שני עונג זכר למעשה וראשית Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Ritzei v'menuchotenu Kadeshenu b'mitzvotecha V'tein chelkeinu b'toratecha Sabeinu mituvecha V'samcheinu b'shuatecha V'taher libeinu le'avdecha באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך וינוחו בישראל מקדשי שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת יתקרא ויקדש שמי רבה וילמד ברוך חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון ויומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגולה ובזמן קורא ואמרו יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיו יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשו לעילא מנחה בחטא ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו תתקבל צלותנו ואורהון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דיבי שמיה ואמרו יהי שלום רבו מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
Amen. Please rise for the Kiddush on page 49, followed by Aleinu on 51.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגופן ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל לתת גדולה שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלוכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We know with sadness the recent passing of Shelley Sanders. To all who knew and loved her, we say, Hamakom Yinachem Edchem B'toch Sharvei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you, along with all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Let us say, Amen. We remember with love the yahrzeits of Edith Abelson, Michelle Robin Agustinelli, Allison Albano Dandies, Constance Alfieri, David Becker, Itzhak Bluestein, Stuart Brownstein, Joseph Carr, Harry Danziger, Belle de Bruin, Solomon Drozen, Richard E. Dwar, Benjamin Fingerit, Ruth Foster, Jack Franco, Bessie R. Friedman, Earl Friedman, David Fruit, Max Gazer, Goldie Glickstein, Millicent Golder, Matilda Jacobs, Rosika Klein, Bernard Klein, Leah Noller, Paul Levin, Abraham Levine, Harry Levine, Gussie Levinsky, Edwin Mazel, Rebecca Marcus, Hannah Morrison, Annette Ostroff, Sydney Pastor, Anna Perlmutter, Rose Persky, Pearl Pickel, Regina Rappaport, Tilly Rellin, Mary Rose, Sarah Sarin, Ruben Shadchan, Alfred Schwab, Esther Goldfarb Schwartz, Meyer Sirota, David Shatkin, Marshall Silverberg, Samuel Snap, Stanley Sobolewski, Doris Steinhardt, Maxim Sugarovsky, Gerda Windsor, Bernard Wittenberg, Ethel Yaknin, Ruth Zeberg, Edward Ziff. If there's anyone who is thinking about someone in particular, if you'd like to mention their names, or if we've missed someone accidentally, if you'd like to mention anybody's name, feel free to stand up and do so. May their memories be for a blessing. And we ask everyone who is saying Kaddish this evening, if you're able to kindly rise, Mourner's Kaddish, page 52. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabam, v'alma divra kirutei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabam v'varach le'olam olamei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Seh shalom b'mromav, huya seh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated. In keeping with New York State law, I am required to read the following. Dear Temple Beth Tzedek member, the annual congregational meeting of Temple Beth Tzedek will take place on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Please plan to attend our annual meeting and participate in planning the future of our congregation. Enclosed, please find the meeting agenda. This meeting will